Okay.
I think it can delay a little bit.
This is 10 minutes, no? So if you want, after 10 minutes, if you want
Okay.
to keep, so you have to.
Okay, so first, there is not an algorithm to do that. Why? Because there is not a perfect solution. First, so it is interactive. You have to propose and check, propose and check, propose and check. That's first. Second thing, you need to know before assigning slots. This is just a problem of defining slots, assigning slots. Simple as that. Okay. So before making the final table, what you need is to know, to have an idea of how do you want your day will be. I mean, what is it? It's a conference for Spanish or Latin American people, or is it a conference for American people, European people? Then the starting time is different. Maybe you start at 9, maybe you start at 9:30, maybe you start at 8. Depends on the audience. That's the first thing you have to know. Starting time, end time. End time. That's the first. Second, you need to know what is more or less the time. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, you have some constraints. You have a constraint on the number of days for the conference. It's not the same a 2 days conference and a 3 days conference. And you have a constraint on the number of rooms you have available. It's not the same to organize a conference in a hotel, in which you pay for the rooms, than, for example, a conference in the university, in which you, generally speaking, don't pay for them. So, the idea is quite clear. It's quite clear. A conference is not, usually it's not a for-profit thing, but you have to generate some revenue. You cannot get loans. That's the point. So, if you have very expensive rooms, you have very short time, what you want is to put probably as many papers as possible in that restricted time. So there are several strategies. Most usual one, reduce the exposition time. So what is the normal exposition time? 20 minutes plus 10 minutes for questions. Usually in a 2-hour session, which is the maximum you can have, it's not, the sessions usually used to last between 90 minutes and 102 hours. It's usual time. And it is also usual that the presentations last for 20 minutes, 25 minutes at most. Usually you stop. You show like the yellow card to the speaker at 20 minutes, and you show him your web card at 25 minutes to leave a space for 5 minutes for questions. So usually, generally speaking, you have 4 papers by session. At the same time, you can have several parallel sessions, depending on the number of available rooms you have. And so that's the general idea. There are some constraints to your freedom to do things. For example, sometimes the conferences, the organizers, like in a conference you have several levels of responsibility. Okay. Program chair, steering committee, blah, blah, blah. So, to this general freedom, to this general framework, you have to consider also, for example, whether the people at the conference wants to have parallel sessions or not, and how many. Sometimes people doesn't want to have parallel sessions because you have 2 sessions at the same time, you cannot attend both. So people, in some conference, people want to hear all presentations. So then you are restricted. This is not usual. Usually at least two parallel tracks are allowed, because if not, and considering the number of presentations per session, you could only present very few papers. So you need at least 2 tracks, that's generally speaking. And what else? Well, once you set all those parameters, you have also to consider the stupid thing, coffee breaks. Usually, it is unlikely that you have more than 2 sessions in the morning, and usually you separate them by a coffee break. Why it is unlikely? Because usually the structure in a conference is case speech, session plus session. So you have case speech, coffee break maybe or not, session, coffee break, session. This can be 5 hours. It's a very long time. So
Yeah.
depends. Maybe in such a structure you can only have 1 hour of case speech, 1 hour and a half, coffee break, 1 hour and a half. Because if not, imagine 1 hour and a half, 1 hour and a half, 20 minutes and 1 hour are 4 hours, 20 minutes. It is the time between 9 and 1:30, something more. 1:30 is too late for some people to have lunch.
Yeah.
Usually some people have lunch, for example German people, you know, have lunch at 11:30. In some cases 12, so it is too late. You have to fit the program in the spaces you have, knowing the people you have, knowing the number of papers. Once you do that, the only thing left is to arrange the papers by similarity. Usually that's the thing. The sessions usually have a topic.
Yeah.
The topic can be more concrete or less concrete. Usually the topic is concrete, but it is not that concrete are the papers in the session. For example, the topic is requirements. And it is supposed that all papers are about requirements, but in reality, as it is a conference in which some papers are rejected and others not, it is very unlikely that you have a very coherent program if it is a generalistic conference. So all papers will be about requirements in the session, but somehow, not necessarily, they do not necessarily address the core topics of requirements. They talk about requirements somehow. And this is more or less the idea. It is not much more than that. Summarizing, knowing the slots, depending on available rooms, starting and end times, location of the coffee breaks, number of papers, and number of parallel sessions. Those are decisions that are up to you alone or in accordance with, for example, the steering committee, which are usually, do you know what is the steering committee?
No.
The steering committee, conferences can have very different committees, usually 3 committees. 2 always, 3 sometimes. Organizing committee is the conference in charge of setting up all the stuff and renting the rooms, ordering the meals, whatever. This is like, it is at this level. Program committee, it is in charge of scientific quality. This committee decides on the number of papers, the topics of the papers, acceptance, rejection, whatever. And sometimes it is all you have. You have a conference chair in most cases, sometimes only a program chair, but in most cases you have a conference chair, which is one person in charge of everything. Okay. And this person decides. Decides about what? Usually about the, for example, number of parallel sessions, starting times and times, whatever. And sometimes you have a steering committee. What is the steering committee? The steering committee is like the top committee, of which usually the conference chair participates, sometimes not. And usually the members of that committee are the founders or the people that are really organized that conference sometime in the past. And they are like, it's like a board of trustees. They guarantee continuity across several editions of the same conference, and they can make decisions about, maybe not decisions, because this is not like a company in which there is a CEO who decides. No, this is not exactly the same way, but there are discussions, there are conversations, and you reach an agreement. That's the idea. And this agreement can be about all the things we talk. So I don't know if you have any specific question.
Yes.
Okay, but
Okay.
it's going to finish, so, and I have to leave, but yeah, we have some questions.
Not a
But
problem.
basically,
Yeah.
is what you have done is to describe the tasks that are to be done
Yes.
by this.
The idea,
And-
again, summarizing, the idea is to first define the slots, big slots, which are the sessions, smaller slots, which are the presentation times.
Yes.
You, once you have done that, you assign topics to sections. So that, for example,